Milan was not a soldier. He was a cargo engineer working on the star freighter Aurora. His job was simple: deliver supplies to planets, load and unload cargo, and keep the ship running on time. It was a quiet life, far from the battles and politics that often filled the news. This time, the Aurora had a special delivery for the Varex Empire. The Varex were a proud alien race known for their shining armor and strict traditions. Milan had heard stories about their queen. She was tall, powerful, and ruled with great wisdom, but no one ever saw her up close. The royal palace was a place no one could enter unless invited. When the Aurora landed on the Varex homeworld, Milan was given orders. "Unload the cargo quickly," the captain said. "But do not touch anything inside the throne room, especially the queen's crown." Milan nodded, but did not understand why the crown was so important. To him, it was just a shiny object made of metal and gems. But for the Varex, it was a sacred symbol. It held their history and power. No one could touch it except the queen herself. The royal palace was massive and glowing with soft blue lights. Milan followed the guards through long hallways filled with strange statues and banners. The air smelled like spices and fresh stone. He felt small in the grand hall. When they reached the throne room, Milan's job was to check the delivery crate. It was full of rare medicines for the Varex people. The crate was placed near the throne, and Milan began to inspect it carefully. Suddenly, the floor beneath him was slippery. He lost his balance and fell forward. His hand reached out to catch himself. His palm brushed against the queen's crown that rested on a pedestal beside the throne. The room fell silent. The guards' eyes widened. They stopped moving. Then, one guard slowly dropped to his knee. Others followed. One by one, all the guards bowed their heads. Milan blinked. "What is this?" he asked. The queen rose from her throne. She was taller than any person Milan had ever seen. Her skin was pale silver, and her eyes glowed faintly purple. She wore armor that shimmered like the night sky. "You touched the crown," she said softly. "No one may touch the crown but the chosen one." Milan shook his head. "I did not mean to. It was an accident." The queen smiled slightly. "The crown does not lie. If it rejects a touch, the person dies. You live. The crown has accepted you." The guards kept bowing. Milan felt the weight of their respect. It was strange and frightening. Why did they obey him now? One of the queen's advisors stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with green scales covering his face. "The ancient trials have returned," the advisor said. "The human who touched the crown is the new protector of the queen." Milan felt confused. "I am just a cargo worker. I do not know anything about fighting or ruling." The queen's eyes softened. "Sometimes, the greatest power comes from those who do not seek it. Come, human, you will learn." The palace doors opened wide. Guards escorted Milan through the halls. Wherever he went, the soldiers bowed and cleared the way. It was a new and strange feeling for Milan. He was a simple man, not a leader or a hero. That night, Milan lay in a soft bed inside the palace. The moonlight shone through large windows, painting the room in silver. He thought about the crown and the queen. How had one small touch changed everything? Suddenly, a knock came at the door. It was one of the queen's guards. "The queen wishes to speak with you." Milan rose slowly and followed the guard to a quiet chamber. The queen sat by a window, looking out at the stars. "You are not like the others," she said. "You carry no fear or pride. You are curious and kind. These are qualities the crown values." Milan nodded. "I still do not understand why the crown chose me." "Some truths will reveal themselves in time," the queen said. "For now, you must prepare. There are dark clouds gathering beyond our world." Milan looked at her, feeling the weight of those words. He was far from home and caught in a mystery bigger than he could imagine. The path ahead was unknown, but one thing was clear. His life would never be the same. The next morning, Milan woke up to soft sunlight streaming through the tall windows of his new room in the palace. The room was much nicer than any place he had stayed before. Rich fabrics covered the bed, and delicate lamps hung from the walls. Outside, the palace gardens bloomed with bright alien flowers that swayed gently in the breeze. Milan still could not believe what had happened. One small accident, touching the queen's crown, had changed everything. He was no longer just a cargo engineer. Now the powerful guards treated him with respect, and even the queen herself had spoken to him. He wondered what the people of his home planet would say if they saw him now. Milan had always lived quietly. He fixed machines, counted cargo, and dreamed of simple things. But now, in this shining palace, he felt like a stranger. As Milan prepared to meet the court, a servant brought him clothes made from fine fabrics. The clothes were light and soft, designed to fit his body and allow easy movement. He dressed quickly and followed the servant to the throne room. The hall was filled with Varek's nobles, warriors, and advisors. The air buzzed with quiet whispers. Milan noticed how all eyes turned to him when he entered. The guards still bowed as he passed. At the center of the room sat the queen on her great throne. Her silver armor caught the light and made her look like a star shining in the dark. Milan's heart beat faster. He felt small but tried to stand tall. The queen raised her hand. The room fell silent. "People of the Varek's Empire," she said in a clear, strong voice, "the ancient trial has chosen a new protector, a human from the stars has touched the sacred crown and lived. This is a sign that our future is tied with his." The crowd murmured. Some faces showed surprise, others showed respect. Milan saw warriors glance at him with new interest. The queen continued, "From this day, Milan will be under our protection. His word will carry weight among us. Guards and soldiers will obey his commands without question." Milan felt his cheeks grow warm. He wanted to speak but did not know what to say. He bowed his head respectfully. This was not his world, and he did not want to cause trouble. One of the queen's advisors stepped forward. His scales glimmered in the light, and his voice was calm but firm. "The crown's choice is sacred. It is not given lightly. It means the human carries the strength of the stars within him." Milan looked around the room. Many nobles and soldiers were watching him closely. He felt a mix of fear and curiosity. How could he live up to this role? After the ceremony, Milan was shown to his new quarters. Servants brought food and comforts he had never known. Fresh fruit from distant planets, warm bread, and a cup of tea with a scent he could not name. Later, the queen called Milan to her private chambers. She sat behind a polished desk covered with strange objects and glowing maps of the galaxy. "You did not choose this," she said softly, "but the crown has chosen you. You must understand our ways and learn to lead." Milan nodded slowly. "I am willing to learn, but I am not a warrior. I do not know how to fight or rule." The queen's eyes held a strange kindness. "Strength is not only in weapons. Wisdom, courage, and heart are stronger. You have these." Milan thought about his life on the cargo ship. He had fixed engines under pressure, made quick decisions, and kept calm when others panicked. Maybe those skills could help here. The queen stood and walked to a large window overlooking the city. "There is danger coming. The Krath Dominion has broken the peace treaty. Their fleets move closer to our borders." Milan looked at the glowing stars beyond the glass. "War?" he asked quietly. "Yes," the queen said. "We must prepare. I need your help." Milan felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. This was not the quiet life he wanted, but he could not turn away now. That evening, he walked through the palace halls with his new guards. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that seemed both ancient and advanced. Milan noticed how they watched him carefully, but with trust. 1. Guard spoke softly. "You have the crown's favor. We will protect you." Milan smiled. "Thank you. I will do my best." As he returned to his room, Milan stared at the crown resting in the throne room. It was more than metal and gems. It was a symbol of hope and power. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was the chosen protector of an alien queen. The journey ahead was unknown and full of challenges. But Milan knew he must face them, for the sake of the queen, the Vareks, and perhaps his own people too. Milan woke early the next day. The palace was quieter in the morning, but there was still a sense of activity beyond his window. Soldiers marched in neat lines below, and palace staff moved quickly to prepare for the day ahead. Since the queen's announcement, Milan's life had changed completely. He was no longer just a visitor or a worker. He had been given a small group of elite guards to protect him. They were tall, strong, and wore armor that shimmered like silver glass. Their faces were serious, but their eyes showed loyalty. One of them, named Jorik, approached Milan with a respectful nod. "Your duties will grow soon. The queen expects you to attend the war council." Milan swallowed hard. "I do not belong in councils or battles," he said. "I am not a soldier or a leader." Jorik smiled kindly. "The crown chose you for a reason. The queen trusts you. So must we." Milan sighed. He knew arguing would do no good. If the crown had accepted him, then perhaps he had to accept this new role. He dressed quickly and followed Jorik through the winding halls toward the council chamber. The room was large and round, with a massive table at its center. Around it sat the queen and her generals. Their armor was decorated with medals and symbols of past victories. The queen motioned for Milan to sit beside her. "This is Milan," she said. "He is the chosen protector of the crown." One general, a stern woman with sharp eyes named Kara, looked Milan up and down. "Chosen or not, he knows little of our ways," she said. "We cannot rely on a stranger." The queen's gaze was steady. "Milan will learn, and he brings a new perspective." Milan felt nervous, but spoke clearly. "I may not know your traditions or your weapons, but I know strategy from my travels and work. Sometimes a fresh idea can help." The generals murmured among themselves. Some looked doubtful, others curious. Kira folded her arms. "Our scouts report the Krath fleet moves fast. They strike with overwhelming force. We must prepare defenses and call our allies." Milan listened carefully. He remembered stories from Earth about wars between fleets. "If I may," he said, "sometimes speed and surprise matter more than numbers. A smaller force can win if it uses clever tactics." The queen nodded. "That is why Milan is here." The meeting lasted for hours. Milan learned about the Vareks, weapons, their ships, and their code of honor. He asked many questions and tried to understand their ways. When the council ended, Milan felt both tired and hopeful. He had much to learn, but he also felt the weight of trust resting on his shoulders. Back in his quarters, Jorik and the other guards gathered around. "You have the crown's favor," Jorik said. "We will follow your lead." Milan smiled at the loyal faces. "Thank you. Together we will protect the queen." Days passed, and Milan was trained in the palace. He practiced with the guards, learning basic combat moves and how to command respect. Though he was not a fighter by nature, his quick mind helped him adapt. The queen visited him often. She shared stories of her people and their long history. Milan realized the Vareks were proud but kind. They cared deeply for their home and their traditions. One evening, as Milan walked in the palace garden, the queen joined him. The stars shone brightly above. "You have changed since you arrived," she said softly. "You carry a calm strength." Milan looked at her. "I still feel out of place." "You are where you belong," she replied. "The crown has chosen well." Suddenly, alarms rang through the palace. Guards rushed past, their faces tense. The queen turned to Milan. "The Krath have sent a warning fleet. They test our defenses." Milan's heart raced. The war was coming closer. The queen's guards formed ranks around them. Milan knew the AI peaceful days were ending. But he felt ready to face the challenge. With the crown's power behind him and the queen's trust, Milan stepped forward. The battle for the Varex Empire was about to begin. The palace was tense. Everywhere Milan looked, he saw hurried faces and heard urgent voices. The Krath Dominion's warning fleet was near, testing the Varex defenses. Soldiers trained harder, ships prepared for battle, and the queen called more meetings. Milan stood in the command room with the queen and her generals. The walls were covered with star maps and blinking lights showing enemy movements. The large hologram in the center showed the Krath ships moving closer. The queen's voice was calm but firm. "The Krath mean to scare us. They want us to surrender without a fight." One general, a tall warrior named Tarek, slammed his fist on the table. "We should strike first, destroy their fleet before they can attack." Milan shook his head. "Attacking without a plan may cause more losses. We need to understand their strategy." The queen nodded at Milan. "Speak your mind." Milan took a deep breath. "From what I have learned, the Krath are strong in numbers but slow to change. They expect fear to weaken us. If we stay calm and use fast, smart moves, we can outsmart them." Kira, the stern general, raised an eyebrow. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Milan pointed to the hologram. "We could use small ships to make quick strikes and then hide. If we confuse the enemy, they will waste time chasing shadows." The queen smiled slightly. "A clever plan. Speed and surprise over brute force." The generals agreed to try Milan's strategy. The Varex fleet began preparing small, fast ships called skimmers. Milan trained with their pilots, learning how to use the ships and their weapons. Days passed quickly. Milan's new life was filled with drills, meetings, and study. He often thought about home and the simple days on his cargo ship. But here, he felt he was part of something greater. One night, Milan stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars twinkled in the dark sky. The quiet was broken by a soft voice behind him. The queen stepped out beside him. "You carry a heavy burden." Milan nodded. "I want to protect your people, but I worry if I am enough." The queen's eyes were kind. "The crown chose you because it sees your heart and mind. Trust yourself." Suddenly, alarms blared across the palace. The warning fleet had crossed into Varex space. Milan and the queen hurried to the command room. The hologram showed enemy ships closing in on the planet's outer defenses. The battle was about to begin. The day of the ceremonial duel arrived. In Varex tradition, every protector chosen by the crown must prove their worth in the arena. This trial was not just about strength, but about courage, wisdom, and heart. Milan stood in the center of the great arena. The sun shone brightly, casting sharp shadows on the stone walls. Thousands of Varex citizens filled the stands, their eyes fixed on the human who had touched the queen's crown. He wore light armor given to him by the palace. It was different from the heavy suits of the Varex warriors, but allowed him freedom to move quickly. Milan's heart pounded. He was not a fighter by training, but he knew he had to try. From the gates opposite him stepped out the challenger, a towering Varex warrior named Gorn. Gorn had 4 strong arms and carried a heavy spear and a large shield. His armor gleamed with battle marks from many fights. The crowd roared with excitement. Milan felt fear but pushed it aside. The queen watched silently from her throne, her gaze steady and calm. The judge raised a hand, signaling the start. Gorn charged forward with a loud roar. Milan stepped back, dodging the first spear strike. Gorn's speed surprised him, but Milan kept his eyes on the warrior's movements. Using the arena's layout, Milan led Gorn toward a narrow passage filled with ropes and nets used for training. Milan had noticed these during his time in the key palace. He remembered the stories of hunters trapping beasts. As Gorn lunged again, Milan dropped to the ground and grabbed a heavy net. With quick hands, he threw it over Gorn's head and arms. The heavy ropes tangled around the warrior, slowing. "Him down!" the crowd gasped. Gorn struggled, trying to break free, but the net held tight. Milan stood and raised his hands. The judge called the match over. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. The queen rose from her throne and smiled. "You have shown cleverness and courage. The crown's choice is wise." Milan bowed respectfully. Though he was exhausted, he felt a new confidence. The people had accepted him not just as a stranger, but as a protector. That night, Milan returned to his quarters, his body sore, but his spirit high. He thought about the battle to come. The Krath fleet was still moving closer, and the Varex needed a leader who could think beyond tradition. He had passed the trial, but his real test was still ahead. The great hall of the palace was filled with tension. The Varex leaders had gathered for a war council. Heavy banners hung from the walls, showing symbols of past victories. The air smelled of smoke and metal, and the low murmur of voices mixed with the soft footsteps of armored warriors. Milan entered the hall, his new armor fitting more comfortably now. He felt the eyes of the generals and advisors on him. Some nodded in respect, while others remained silent, still unsure of the human's place among them. The queen sat at the head of the table, her silver armor shining under the bright lights. "The Krath Dominion approaches," she said. "Their fleet is strong and merciless. We must prepare for battle." The generals exchanged serious looks. Tarek, the fierce warrior from before, leaned forward. "We should meet their fleet head-on with our largest ships, show them our strength." Kira, the sharp-eyed general, shook her head. "That will only lead to heavy losses. The Krath have more ships and firepower." Milan cleared his throat. "If I may speak," he said. The room quieted. "I know your weapons and ships are powerful, but sometimes in war, speed and surprise matter more than strength alone." He moved to the large star map on the table. "We could use fast skimmers to hit their weak points. Instead of facing their entire fleet, we strike quickly and retreat before they can respond." The generals looked at each other. Some seemed interested, others doubtful. Milan continued. "I also recommend calling human allies. They have ships that can cloak and move fast. With their help, we can create traps and confuse the Krath." The queen studied Milan closely. "Your ideas are different, but war is not won by tradition alone." The council agreed to prepare for Milan's plan. Over the next days, the palace buzzed with activity. New ships were built and trained, pilots practiced daring maneuvers, soldiers prepared defenses on the planet. Milan worked alongside the commanders. Though he still felt like a stranger, the guards looked to him for guidance. He studied the Varex ships and weapons, learning their strengths and weaknesses. One night, the queen came to Milan's room. She looked tired, but determined. "The Krath will not only attack with weapons," she said. "They will try to capture you. You are more than a protector now. You are a symbol." Milan nodded. "I understand. I will be ready." Days passed, and the tension grew. The stars outside the palace windows seemed darker, as if holding their breath. Milan stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the horizon. The weight of his role pressed on him. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was the crown's guardian. The battle was near. The fate of the Varex Empire, and perhaps Many worlds rested on his shoulders. The Varex skies were filled with tension as the Krath fleet approached. Massive ships darkened the stars, their engines glowing red as they moved closer to the planet's defenses. The palace buzzed with activity. Guards checked their weapons. Pilots prepared their ships, and Milan stood among them, steady and focused. He wore the silver armor of the crown's guardian, a symbol that inspired hope among the Varex people. The queen stood beside him, her eyes sharp and calm. "We fight not just for our homes, but for our future," she said. Milan nodded. "Our strength is in our unity and strategy." The battle began with a sudden blast. Krath ships fired long-range missiles at the outer defense stations. The Varex response was swift but careful. Following Milan's plan, small skimmers raced out to harass the enemy, firing quick bursts before retreating into asteroid fields. The Krath commanders grew frustrated. Their large ships were slow and could not catch the fast skimmers. Milan directed the Varex forces like a skilled conductor, sending pilots to attack weak points and retreat safely. Suddenly, from hyperspace, human ships appeared. Their sleek black designs moved silently. They joined the fight, attacking the Krath flanks with precision strikes. The enemy fleet faltered. Confused and attacked from multiple sides, the Krath ships struggled to maintain formation. In the heat of battle, Milan's guard spotted an enemy ship breaking away, heading straight for the palace. "Captain Milan," Jorik called. "Krath ship approaching the capital." Milan acted quickly. He boarded a small fighter with Jorik and raced to intercept. The enemy ship fired missiles, but Milan dodged skillfully. Using a quick maneuver, he disabled the Krath ship's engines and forced it to retreat. Back at the palace, the queen watched the battle unfold. "You have done well, Milan," she said. The Krath fleet, now disorganized, began to withdraw. The Varex and their human allies had won a great victory. After the battle, the queen called a ceremony in the throne room. Milan stood before the gathered crowd. The crown rested on its pedestal, shining brighter than ever. "Today, we honor Milan," the queen declared. "He is the crown's guardian, protector of the Varex people, and a symbol of unity between worlds." The guards bowed. Deeply to Milan, their respect clear. Milan felt a warm pride, but also humility. He looked at the queen and nodded. "I did not choose this path, but I will protect it with all my strength." The queen smiled. "And so you shall." The palace doors opened wide as the people cheered. Milan knew his life had changed forever. From a simple cargo engineer to the protector of an alien empire, he had found a new purpose among the stars.